Come on in. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay. Oh, 'tis our delight for the red and white. The Imps are here to stay.
Morning, everybody. Hope you're well. I'm just out on my morning dog walk. Apologies already to Mr. Summers. I was just going to have a phone call with him. He didn't reply quick enough, so now I am on here. Just a quick one really this morning, I think. And I've noticed already down the track here, I don't know if you can see, but there's a vehicle which could mean issues with the dog. I just wanted to have a quick chat really about the FA Cup tie. Finding it a little bit harder to get content out at the moment. Just started a new job and I'm just kind of getting up to speed with that. So, important to stay in touch with all you wonderful people, patrons and non-patrons alike. Anyway, so this weekend, Bowers and Pitsea in the FA Cup. I've seen a few points online. Oh, my hair's bad. A few points online about people kind of saying that. Sorry, I'm just going to have to kill Pete on there. Has he gone? There we go. People, is it going to be a small crowd and that sort of thing? And I think it'd be a real shame if it was. I think if we only sort of turn out 7,000, it wouldn't give a good impression of ourselves as a fan base. I think, Bowers and Pitsea were absolutely delighted to draw Lincoln City. And I think for a moment, it gave me a huge boost thinking, wow, this team, just one second. Charlie, come here. Wow, this team think that we're a big club, we're a big draw. And I kind of, I appreciated that. And it made me feel quite good. Hang on. Beautiful. You don't get this on Saturday football, do you? There we go. So I think it would be a real shame if we were to then kind of not turn out in numbers. There's no reason not to. It's a nice cheap day, £10 a ticket. I think it's a £5 for kids. And these are memorable games, and the podcast comes out at midday, so I'm not going to try and cover too much of the same content on the podcast as I have on the on here. But I look back at the memorable FA Cup games, and you think, I remember playing Bracknell. I think I remember playing Welling. Certainly remember playing Emley, Stevenage, Dagenham, teams that you don't play every single week. You remember playing those in the FA Cup. Away at Rochdale, not so much. I think it was an MK Dons game as well, wasn't there? So, you kind of remember these games, and I think it would be a real shame if this was a low crowd in favour of, a kind of a different game. So, hang on, Charlie, this way. This way. Morning. Right. Come on, this way. This way. Essential viewing. So I think it would be a shame if this game was any different. So it'd be nice to see a kind of 7,000 or 8,000. Bowers and Pitsea, it's a big day out. It's the magic of the cup. And we went to Ipswich and they had only kind of got 6,000 when we took a few. It wouldn't have been quite a special day. And certainly don't hope for a similar outcome to that. But it would be a shame. Now, I think it's going to be a good game. And another thing that I've kind of picked up on quite a bit is that people are expecting, a real reserve team. So I've seen talk last night of, will Gallagher play? Will Draper play? Longdon, Adelakun, Sanders will almost certainly play. I think Archie Mayer might even play in goal. And I think that there's a real danger of going too weak. And I think we saw it probably when we played Ipswich, almost certainly when we played Brighton, that bringing the fringe players in, it can actually do them a disservice if you've got a fringe 11 rather than a fringe, let's say 3 or 4, and then a kind of a first team 7, because it breaks that rhythm and it breaks that understanding, and it can be harder for them to get into the rhythm of the game because they're playing not with total strangers, but in a unit that's not fully functional. So, for instance, Charlie, I've just got to keep an eye on him now. For instance, when you think about Brighton, certainly Burnley. Let's go Burnley. They played a kind of a quicker striker up front. They had to be in possession. They played 3 or 4 players that hadn't played much first team football, and those players really stood out. And it kind of lets down the rest of the team, and even the established players that play can then struggle. So whilst I'd really like to see some fresh faces in the side, I think it's also dangerous to assume, that we're going to play kind of youth players You know, like drop Gallagher in there or Billy Brooks in there, although I don't think Brooks can play because he's on loan at Gainsborough Trinity. So there's a real danger, I think, of going too weak, playing with too many reserves. And with that in mind, I put a team together earlier in the week, which I more or less stand by. You know, a lot of people saying Freddie Draper to start. Steve Barton, good morning. He's saying Freddie to start. I can see the benefit of starting Freddie, but look at it this way. Dan Lundelou's just got 2 man of the matches. Stacey West man of the matches on the bounce. Looked a real danger against Wigan. Should really have scored early doors against Shrewsbury. And I think if he does, we go on and we win the game. Because, you know, you're probably 2-0 up at half time. Shrewsbury are a little bit out of sight by then. Come on. So I think there's actually a shout for starting Dan. Now, I picked Freddie Draper. I'm not just being antagonistic like I am on the podcast with Ben. But I think not having a game next week as well, if Dan is a streaky player and a confidence player, you need to probably keep that going. And yeah, there's every chance that he could get a goal in a game against Bowers and Pitsea. You know, you would expect our additional fitness to pay dividends later on in the game. So almost certainly, yeah, I would expect Dan to play, I think. 1 second. I'm on poo duty. I would expect Dan to play. I think that Dan is probably the sort of player that, you know, you kind of expect to play football. Ugh. So come on. So yeah, Dan or Freddie. I think Hakib's got to play. I think Max Sanders have got to play. I think they're 2 players who are on the fringes of the first team. Have had enough first team football to be able to slot into the rhythm and not see a major effect. But at the same time, they need to start. Remy Longdon's a little bit different because I think with Remy, you've got a player who probably hasn't played as much. Still not entirely defined. Is he a winger? Is he a striker? Is he a 10? I'm not really sure where he plays either. So it's actually quite hard in that respect to think, you know, of him as a fringe player in the same kind of context. But I expect those 3 to be the ones that come in. Yeah, poo. I know, Sean, poo duty. The worst thing is actually I'm on a I'm on a private track. The track owner is someone I've just walked past and I haven't brought a bag, so I had to kind of make out I was picking it up and realised he'd see me walking away without it anyway. So they're the sort of, Charlie, come on. They're the fringe players I expect to see. But I think other than that, it's also going to have quite a first team feel. You know, I think Archie Mayer plays ahead of Josh Griffiths, possibly. Not sure if that's, you know, that's an opinion. I didn't go with that earlier in the week, but something, you know, I have kind of thought about it and gone with that now. But I think Regan Poole almost certainly starts at right back. That's more out of necessity than anything because TJ Ioma can't play there, otherwise we don't have enough centre backs. So Ioma and Monsma to play centre back, then probably Cohen Bramall at left back to give him a start. But that's really, you know, Jamie Robson again has been in decent form, and he'd probably get away with playing him. He looks the fittest at the moment, probably in the first team squad because he hasn't had an injury. I think when you've also got Max Sanders in the midfield, you don't want to change that midfield dynamic too much because I think with a team like Bowers and Pitsea, with the greatest respect, they're not doing well in their league, but they're focused on this. So this is their Burnley, this is their Ipswich, this is their big game. So they're going to be high tempo, high intensity. They're going to be strong in the challenge. They're going to want to make a name for themselves. They're going to want to do things the right way. And they're going to want to get a result out of this at any cost because, you know, it's a huge amount of money for them as well if they were to win the game. So I think bearing in mind, you need some quality in that midfield, some first team experience. Wouldn't surprise me if we don't go with Conor McGrandles. And then potentially Sorensen, obviously because Bishop is out. I think probably a rest for Fiorini is a positive thing. I think he's gone off the boil a little bit in recent weeks. He got his 3 goals. He had a really, really good September. I think October's been challenging for Fiorini. And I think that we need probably more experience. And I know Sorensen hasn't got a huge amount more experience of the English game with loan spells at MK Dons and a bit at Stoke. But I can imagine Sorensen, McGrandles and Sanders think in the midfield. And that Obviously, then Leeds up front. We know there's going to be no Scully. We know there's going to be no Bishop on the flank. Almost certainly a Delican. I think my heart says Draper. My head says on Lunderloo. And then over on the other flank, I think Chris Maguire, because I think, again, Mags has just come back from injury. I think we're seeing him getting fitter and fitter. I don't think 2 week or what would be a 3 week layoff consecutive Saturdays would be conducive to him keeping that match fitness. And I think the fact Sunderland's been rearranged and the fact that the next game after this is Doncaster probably means we're more likely to see first team players than we would be. So don't be surprised if Gallagher's on the bench. Don't be surprised if he comes on at some point for his debut, depending on the score. But at the same time, if it's 1-1 with 70 minutes, don't expect us to place a heap of responsibility on a young man's shoulders. And I think you can see how that affects players by looking back at the Oxford game. The game we lost 6-0, and you saw Callum Connolly. He'd played some senior football, but he wilted under. It wasn't a negative atmosphere as such, but he wilted under the pressure, and I think that's important. So basically, it was just a quick video, really, just to discuss the fact that I think we're going to be stronger than people probably imagine. I think that we're probably going to have more first team players in and around the first 11 than people imagine. It doesn't mean it'll be an easy win. I think it's going to be a really tough game. They're going to probably come here and go, let's not concede in the first 30, 35 minutes. If we can turn the crowd and they get on their back and then we get a goal, that's going to be their plan, because that would be our plan if we were going away to Arsenal, wouldn't it? Let's keep it tight. Certainly, and if you remember the old FA Cup run, the 2016-17, we went to Arsenal with let's not concede in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes. We didn't. Let's kind of get the fans on the back. Okay, it didn't happen there, but it did happen at Ipswich. Let's take advantage if we can late on. That happened at Burnley. We are the blueprint. That's the worst thing. We've drawn up, the Lincoln City 2016-17 have drawn up the blueprint for non-league teams. And okay, I know we're not original. It's been done before. But because we're the opposition, the non-league team will likely be looking at our run and going, right, how did they do it? They did this, they did that. And that's what they're going to do to us. So the best thing that could happen to us is for us to come out and get an early goal, because I think that breaks the spirit of the smaller club. And I think then you get more of a right to play. 1 or 2 players can be affected, but we need the crowd. And I think that's the key. If we are sub 7,000, that could be really disappointing, especially if they're bringing 1,200, because they will be loud. And there'll be loads of tweets going out on Saturday going, respect to Bowers and Pitsea, what a great support, they've done so well, etc., etc. Fantastic for such a small club to bring such a huge amount of fans. I think their capacity is 2,200 to 300 seating. They would fill their ground for this game. They will probably bring 1,500. I think they've been talking about to us. Whether that's right or not, we shall see. They will be loud. They're on a day out. This is their Christmas, birthday, bar mitzvah, and Arsenal away all rolled into one. So we've got to be mindful of that. We can play a part. And sometimes I'm dubious about that. Sometimes you play in League Two and people say, you can play a part, and you think, or League One rather, you can play a part. You think, really, you have a chance, the fan gets on your back. I get that sometimes it can be a help, but I think sometimes the quality of the support is overstated in how much it impacts the players. I think the negativity of support has a larger negative impact than a positive support does. I might be wrong. That might just be me turning pessimistic in my old age, but that's what I think. So we shall see. I think it'd be nice to see a bigger turnout, especially we don't have many home games this month. It's a quiet month. I know Christmas is coming up and people are already thinking about that, but for a tenner a ticket, honestly, it's not bad, is it? And it's one of those memorable games. This isn't an MK Dons in the FA Cup or a Rochdale or another faceless game. It's a team that you'll remember. You'll always, in 20 or 30 years time, whatever the result, will go, do you remember when that team that sounded like an accountancy firm came to play Lincoln and they got beat 6-0, 1-2-1? Do you know what I mean? It is a memorable game, whatever. So reasons to go. Right, I'm going to quickly look down the list before heading back. Sean Simons, morning Gaz, morning mate. Jimmy Atkin, morning mate, morning to you. Jim. Chris says, great to hear your dad's okay, buzzing for Saturday FA Cup special. Yeah, my dad's had COVID. a little bit worried at first because he sounded really, really poorly on it, but he's much, much better now. So that's a huge positive. Steve Barton, morning. Andrea says that Sam and her will be at the game. That's great. Morning, Cornell. He's so excited for the FA Cup this Saturday. Unusual for Cornell to be excited. James Biddles, morning, Gaz. Morning, my friend. We'll scoot through a few comments. I'm sure I saw one further down to pick up on, which was from Kate. The crowd will be under 7,000, loads of tickets left under the stadium. That's what I like about Kate. Do you remember Chris Ashton used to have the Oracle of Optimism? Do you remember that? Every game it was optimism. Well, I think Kate should have the paragraphs of pessimism. I think before every game we should go to Kate for just a rundown of reasons to be pessimistic. And that's not a dig, you know what I mean? It's really not, because you know, when we win and when we play well, Kate will say we've won and we've played well. So, you know, I'm not just having a dig at her there, but I do. Yeah, I just think it'd be amusing. Paragraphs of pessimism. There you go, Kate. You can have a regular slot on the site. Mr. Barlow, morning, guys. Hopefully lots of programmes get sold, seeing as it's Bowers' first time in the FA Cup. Of course, the famous programme. Great point to end on, Adam. I've done an interview in it this week. Max Sanders, lovely, lovely guy. Chatted to him while he was on the train back from seeing his family. Really, really nice guy. Great interview in there, if I do say so myself. And also a small article on the site as well. So, look, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to go now and ring Pete, who tried to bring me through this, and hopefully avoid the farmer who may have spotted a small pile of Charlie's feces. So I'm maybe going to have to go the long way round. I'll speak to you all again soon. Enjoy the game. Take care. Goodbye.